If everybody's on board to begin, let's start the legislation to be discussed in our pre-meeting conference dated October 4th, 2023, and a little after 6. Our first piece of legislation is a proclamation for Jeffrey Lynch. This is spearheaded by our councilman, Venice Irving. Councilman Irving, I thank you for putting my name on it and my colleagues. Is there anything you'd like to discuss? Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Beatrice.
Yeah.
You want to take the accolades for it?
Yeah. So we talked about this last time. I made it full council. But what I am going to do, I'm going to call Mark and Sam up there with me also, since they both are school district employees. Okay?
Any
And
discussion?
I'll let them have a chance to say something, and I'm sure Jeff will say something too. So.
Very good. Any discussion on the proposed legislation?
Nicely done.
Okay. Our next piece of legislation requires a Thursday rule. I'm assuming that the council has no problem waiving it. Our further discussion on it is intersections where stops are required. There's a list of them, sponsored by Councilman Beatrice. Is this cleaning up some legislation, Joseph?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Any discussions on this piece of legislation? Discussion is closed on number 2. We're on, excuse me, number 3.
He's going to be doing all these.
Sponsored by Councilman Beatrice. Intersections where stops are required, Crosby Road and River Road. That's going down the wrong way. 4-way stop intersection. Any discussions?
No.
Good, Joe?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. Our next piece is ordinance number 4. Wow, what the hell? Sponsored by Councilwoman Aiello. Broad Street and Oriskany Street, Lafayette Street. And Broad Street and Lafayette, the west side. No
Right,
parking
right
all
next
time.
to the police station. They requested to remove the parking there. It's such a narrow street anyway, but with the hospital opening, street parking just isn't advised.
Okay. And, okay, any discussion on that piece of legislation? Okay, ordinance number 4 is closed. This piece of legislation we brought the last minute. It has to do with these school security officers. Did my colleagues get a chance to look at that agreement yet?
Testing.
Today, it was,
It wasn't in the packet last night until the morning.
no, the contract was just finalized, so I didn't have a final.
No, that's okay, I just, because I didn't put it in the agenda. All right, no, cool, that's fine.
So,
There's no rush on it, I take it, it's, if we wait a couple weeks? We are looking to get it moving, so I understand if it has to be put into committee, but we are looking to get it done.
we have time to discuss it. Go ahead.
I didn't read this at all.
I haven't read it, so.
Huh?
I haven't read it either, so none of us have.
Chairman, may I ask Deputy Chief Noonan a question?
Of course.
All right, Deputy Chief,
You may.
if this does not get passed until the next meeting, are we covering out of staff at this juncture, the schools?
No, you're fine.
We're fine? So there won't be any lack of coverage, there won't be any risk associated with us passing this at the next meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
For this?
Yeah, I'm not gonna, I can't just, I gotta read it. And then we
All right, so do what you guys want, but I just wanted to ask him that, so.
The chief, Deputy Chief will tell you about the proposed agreement. Go ahead, sir.
So I'll try it. It's kind of convoluted, but I'll try and explain it the best I can. Chief Pyleman, about 20 years ago, entered into an MOU with the school district, which said that police officers could work in the schools as security officers. They'd be employees of the school district, paid by the school district, but they would be acting as police officers wearing Utica Police Department uniforms. That worked well for a long period of time, but times have changed, liability has changed. Less and less officers wanted to work that detail. It's at a much lower rate of pay, same responsibility, same liability for them. As administrators, the chief and I had concerns because we had no there's no accountability. We didn't know who was working when. There was times where there was incidents that occurred that we weren't notified of because they weren't technically our employees, but it tended to come back on us because they were wearing our uniform. At the end of the day, they're wearing our uniform, they're still police officers. So to kind of straighten all this out, we've been talking about this for a number of years, but the last superintendent, the last interim superintendent approached us actually and asked about an SRO program, which started the talks, which led into this with the current interim superintendent. And what we're doing is basically all the employees, there were 6 left of the school district who were also police officers, resigned. And this agreement is that we're going to provide police security under our supervision and control. They're our employees, and they'll be working in the school district for us as police officers in the school.
Who's paying them?
School district is paying, reimbursing us at an overtime rate to include, fringe, equipment, and salary.
Why did all 6 of those remaining officers resign at the same time?
Because they understood that for this to work, there no longer could be,
Oh, okay.
you couldn't have that you couldn't have both systems in place. And they were all
They
agreeable.
did it
were 100%.
intentionally in order to pay
They were
for it.
agreeable to this. They also, they continue to work in this program. However, now they're our employees, not the school district. So there's a lot of language in there that just basically says all.
This is just my suggestion. I know this is new to us. I put a proposal in the other day for the school buses for extra security, and nobody wanted to have a discussion unless the school district was here. I think this follows under the same policy, as far as not, I don't want Deputy Chief Noonan to go and speak on behalf of an agreement that the city and the police department and the school district came in about. So I think it's only fair to, our city attorneys and the deputy chief that we further this discussion with the school district here and figure out where we gotta go from there.
Well, the only,
I'd
the only,
like to suggest that we have a 5 o'clock committee meeting.
I mean, I think it's gonna be more than 5 o'clock. I think it should be a separate day. I mean, because God forbid a discussion, I think could easily take on a little longer than an hour before our regular council meeting, so.
Chairman,
I think with
Can-
respect to
can I have the
everybody,
floor?
I think we give them a little more time.
I'm just going to request this, especially because moving this ahead as quickly as possible is what we should be doing. If we could all read this in the near term, if we have any questions, actually put the questions together so that we can have that, at least, I'm not saying you can't ask questions when we're there. I'm saying, like, let's get a lot of the questions done ahead of time. Yes, and I think a good way to do that would be to, not a million put together your core questions. Please get them to the clerk. We can make sure those go to the administration, Dr. Davis, whoever needs, we can figure out who needs to answer those questions so that we can have the most productive possible discussion on this and move it ahead as efficiently as possible. We don't want to force anyone into a decision, but I think that we need to solve this problem as quickly as possible. Okay?
go ahead, Joey.
So, very quickly, I know we're gonna talk about it, but what basically is the difference? Just that you guys would be scheduling them? I mean, the school district's still paying them, right?
I think this is all premature.
All right, so I'm just asking a simple
But just a
question.
point of order, I think that, these are all, I don't want anything to go beyond this discussion,
Well,
other than the fact that I
Eddie's a big
think
boy,
that.
and if he didn't wanna answer
Eddie,
it,
are
he
you a big
wouldn't
boy?
answer
I
it.
know I defend a lot of men in my life, but, I mean, if you wanna go and answer on your
I mean, I'm
behalf,
just
but
asking what the
I just don't
difference
want
is.
any out-of-tone discussions. I'd rather have it at one
Yeah,
committee
we will,
meeting
but
and
I
go
mean,
from
it's
there.
it's a generic question. What is the major difference? That you guys will be scheduling the people?
So we schedule them, Joe. They're our employees. Big part of this, the part I left out was we wanted to ensure that we had coverage at both middle schools and the high school, which is what this is entails. So under the old agreement, I couldn't tell you who was working where when. If people were there, it was up to the school district to do that scheduling. And there was times where we found it was lacking. So now it's under our control, and we want to make sure that there's police coverage at all the schools, high schools and middle schools.
Frankie?
Yeah, obviously there was no supervision, now they could They know what they're doing, men and women, whoever work there. If you want, we could schedule a date and time right now, so we can get it out of the way. Let the clerk know.
I just got a couple
And,
questions to ask before you schedule.
We'll have to check with the school district and see who's gonna represent them, but we could set a date and time.
Hold on a
Right
second. Didn't this get preliminary agreed by the superintendent?
So their board, the Board of Education and Superintendent both agreed to it.
So they already did already?
Yes,
Okay. So Board of Education already agreed to this
It's on
document?
record?
Yes.
They already had the meeting on it?
yes.
Okay. So the next step, the question I have is that, there's 8 police officers per day coming off our dockets. We got the manpower?
So it's on an overtime basis, so it's outside of their normal shifts.
Okay.
So they schedule them in 4 and 8 hour blocks, typically on their most likely days off or.
They were all, weren't they all currently doing this already? For the most part?
So the pool was much smaller. It used to be a lot more officers did it. Again, it's at a much lower rate of pay. As we have more and more overtime opportunities in the department, less and less officers were willing to do it at the much lower rate of pay in the school. This is at an overtime rate, and it opens it up to a much larger pool of officers.
Does that mean that it's then voluntary? Is it possible that
It's
not
voluntary.
enough officers would be willing to sign up for the shifts?
I had 80 officers put in for it this month.
Okay.
Oh, that's good. Well, basically, if the Board of they already voted for it, they supported it. It's a no-brainer for us to continue it. If the department has enough manpower. Go ahead, Samantha.
I mean, I don't understand how the Board of Education has meetings with our officers and his meeting with their Board of Education, and we're just gonna just approve it because everybody else had that? I mean.
Do you have
need to
any
a little
issues
bit of
on
a-
it? Do you have any issues on it?
Frank, I mean, I haven't even seen the legislation. It came in October 3rd, I mean, yesterday. I mean,
Okay.
to give a little respect to this body, that we're still a legislative body, and we deserve to have whatever information the Board of Education was given with all parties involved, that we deserve that same respect as well. I mean, I think
It's not-
that's
I don't think it's got anything to do with respect. It's an agreement, Samantha. It's
Yeah,
got nothing
it's
to
an
do with
agreement
respect.
that their Board of Education,
The agreement we were having a meeting, so what's the deal?
right.
Just talking about
I mean,
it.
that's it. I mean, I understand it. I agree
So
with
you
that-
want the,
that it's time sensitive, but
I'd like to suggest October 18th at 4 PM.
I think that we don't need to wait that long. I think that if something could be a little sooner before our actual council meeting, I mean, I think that. this
and
is
we don't know
time
their
sensitive.
schedules. They might not be
Yeah,
able to
right.
make.
So I think that before the October 18th meeting, that this should be done. Because like you said, if it's already done and it's ordered with, just to have a discussion on what's going on and to figure out where we're at, I think that that's important.
Mr. President.
We've had special meetings on Genesee Street. We're not gonna, I mean, we could
We
put a
don't even
special
know if
meeting
the-
together if we have to for the police department going into the school district. So that's
Do
it.
we know if the-
Whatever we do, I really would just urge us to read this tonight, tomorrow morning, whenever you want to read it, and whatever questions you have, get them to the clerk as quickly as possible so that we can make sure the people who need to answer whatever questions may arise can be answered potentially even before the meeting, like you said, like we used to do things, and then we can move ahead efficiently with this agreement, all right?
Well, we're not even sure that the Board of Education is going to have the members participate.
But we
So
can
because
ask-
they already voted on
He-
it,
we
right?
can ask
All the
them.
more reason to have our questions lined up ahead of time.
Judge?
This matter of the officers, are you gonna be handling it?
Yes, yes,
Chief,
Judge.
is that gonna be yours?
Yes,
And you're gonna answer most of the questions, are you not?
yes.
Now, there's a security team at the schools right now, isn't, that are not Utica police officers.
They have civilian security at the schools, yes.
And do they have a head of their security department?
They do.
They do. And that head of their security department, what is that role going to be with the Utica officers who are assigned there? That he is not, the Utica officers are not subject to his control.
Subject to our control.
That's number one. Number two, I've been reading through this, and one of the things I didn't see in there, there was a discretionary question in there about if a Utica police officer is at one of the entrances. I didn't see where they had the authority to bar anybody from entering. In fact, I think specifically said that they don't. And I think there should be some procedural aspect And when the police officer knows something or sees somebody who's at that door, is not gonna let him in under any circumstance, that's making a independent decision. And I put a circle around the word bar, because instead of saying bar, they spelled it as bear, B-E-A-R. So I was really wondering about that, because who does that officer go to say, look, I'm communicating with you saying I've got some here who says they want to come in here, and I'm not going to let them in. There may be a reason. I don't know what it would be. The point I'm making is, you know, the extent of one's authority. I've read through this thing peripherally. You know, I think the motive is very commendable, and if you're a parent, you should be very happy about this. As many police officers we can get around the schools, the better protected children are, and they're much more experienced than the security officers, I'm sure. And our officers are all armed. Theirs are not.
Correct.
Right. So there's a big difference in all that. I just wanted to know, they should know, and I should know, that any questions that should be also directed to you. We don't have to go talking to the chief, or Chief Noonan will take care of that. Am I correct, sir?
Yes, Judge.
Okay.
And Judge, just to touch on your point, so another reason why we did this is because of what you said. We want to clarify that our people are acting as police officers and not as security officers. So that before there was a little bit of, they shouldn't be performing administrative functions for the school. They're only going to act as police officers. They're not going to reprimand a child for wearing a hat or whatever else and being late for class. They're going to act as police officers only.
As long as you're wearing that uniform,
Right.
you are a Utica police officer.
Correct.
And that's what this clears up.
And that,
That's what this clears up.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say that lawyers look at these things too. We look at the indemnifications and all the other things. That's what we look at. That's what Mr. Georgia looks at. And that's what we discussed briefly a little bit tonight. And of course, we knew it was going to committee. And I think what the president is suggesting, if you have specific questions, sort of write them down, and we'll see if Chief Noonan can be prepared to answer them before he gets here. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so is the consensus of the council to put this in committee?
Yeah, we've got a special meeting, right?
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna call Joe Bike in between and find out, at least the president can come, correct?
And Superintendent Davis, I would think.
Superintendent Davis may be here.
So can I just say that, so we negotiated this, the chief and I negotiated this with the superintendent, so
Oh, you already did
she's
already?
very knowledgeable with it.
Yeah,
She
this is
knows.
all, yeah.
So I don't understand why would, we wanna call them in?
Maybe to explain word by word if you have questions. I mean, I don't think anybody here is against this, but you might want to answer some questions if you have questions.
Okay.
I mean, it's a 10-piece piece of legislation, I think, 10 pages? You just
No,
do-
it's just a resolution approving the contract.
Okay.
The contract is.
Yeah, the mayor and the superintendent still have to finalize the contract. Okay, if the council wants to hold it to now, that's fine. Is that the intent? Is there anything else you'd like to discuss at this meeting?
It'll be introduced this evening regardless.
Absolutely. There are some pieces coming out of committee. I have something in my throat. The sale of Kennedy Garage, the sale of 355 James Street, the sale of 511 Mohawk Street, the sale of 624 Tracy Street, and the sale of 1416 Nielsen Street. Are there any discussions? Okay. We're all set, then, Mr. President, I think we can retire until 7 o'clock then.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
p.m., September 4th, 2023. We're going to call this meeting of the Utica City Council to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Aiello, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Irvin, Beatrice, Williamson, Colosimo Testa, DeBrango, Galimi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to change the order of business this evening because we do have a proclamation we want to get to. However, before that, I would like to note that the minutes of the previous meeting were posted on eCode 360 for the council and the public to review. Do we have any motions regarding the reading of the minutes?
Motion to move the minutes, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right. Second was DeBrango on that. Thank you. Any opposed to dispensing with the reading of the minutes? Okay, the minutes have been accepted. They are posted to eCode 360 for all to review. All right, the next order of business this evening, we do have Jeffrey Lynch and his family and friends here for a proclamation honoring him. So, Councilman Beatrice, would you like to proceed and present, please?
Yes, and I'm going to request that Mark and Samantha join me at the podium since they are employees of the district. I think they should be part of it also.
Okay.
And it is, we all know it, it's full council. All of us are supporting
Absolutely.
this
This is a
proclamation.
joint effort here.
Yes.
That's understood. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Councilman Beatrice, you will have the floor at the podium, and Jeff, you can
Please come up.
join, and the family, if you would like, please. Yeah.
Come on
Yeah.
up here, you guys.
You guys are good? All right, thank you.
You guys, you want to make a statement first, or I'll read this first?
Dr. Davis, if you'd like to, well,
I'll read the proclamation.
it's up to you. It's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, first thing I want to say is thank everybody for coming. Especially, I went special thanks to Dr. Davis, Jason Cooper, member of the school board, and all of your family and friends that came. And like I told you before, I'm honored to stand next to you. I think what you did was, I don't have no words to say what you did. I can't even imagine what you've gone through, and probably most of all, your family. This is a proclamation honoring Jeff Lynch for his historic action, whereas Jeffrey Lynch, a lifetime resident, Utica resident, has spent the majority of his life in service to others. A quality passed down to him and his 5 sisters from their parents, a firefighter and a homemaker. And whereas Jeffrey first answered the call of service in 1993 when he enlisted in the United States Air Force, serving as an aircraft crew chief for 4 years. Following his time with the Air Force, Jeffrey continued his work in the community by taking jobs at the House of Good Shepherd, the Department of Corrections, and Sodexo, providing food to local hospitals and nursing homes. And whereas on Saturday, September 9th, Jeffrey was yet again serving his community by working as a security guard at the Thomas R. Proctor High School football game. At the end of the game, a fight broke out. While attempting to break the fight up, Jeffrey was shot in the head. Thanks to his willingness to step in and help, an unfortunate situation was kept from becoming worse. Thankfully, Jeffrey is recovering and is here with us today. And whereas, when not serving his community, Jeffrey enjoys his time in the outdoors with his fiancee Kim, children Kyla and Jeffrey, and family dog Harley. And now be it resolved that there are not enough words to express the gratitude of the members of the Common Council in the city of Utica to Jeffrey Lynch for his historic actions on that faithful day, and be it further resolved that this tribute will forever be a part of the minutes of the meeting of the Utica Common Council held on this 4th day of October, 2023. Thank you again.
As usual, I have no prepared statement. The things I say are the things I honestly feel. Luck, blessings, whatever you want to call it, I'm standing here today. The only thing that I hope for the future is the fact that I'm standing here becomes some type of beacon, some type of hope that says, you know, we can end this stuff. It's not just another tragedy. A family didn't bury another family member. I'm here to look people in the eyes and say, you know, this stuff has to stop. And if things can be done in this room, if things can be done in the police department, in the school district, it has to be done. I know I took the physical impact, which to me is seeming very minimal to what I got to watch my family go through. I just don't want to see that anybody else have to go through that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I figured I did after I said it.
Can we all quickly vote by A? All right. Thank you.
Nine E's adopted.
Thank you. And thank you all for attending this evening.
Can we just have a 5-minute recess? I mean, I know if they don't want to stay here, they're more than welcome to leave, and I don't want them to feel like they're obligated to stay after the proclamation for the actual meeting, so.
5-minute recess?
Sorry, I know you've
There's a
been
motion.
through enough.
No, there's
so
a motion for 5 minutes.
For 5
I think in
minutes.
this setting, I think that's okay if someone wants to entertain it.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, any opposed? All right, seriously, quarter after, we're starting the meeting back up. All right. Come back from our recess and continue our order of business as usual. Judge, how you doing? Like the pocket square this evening? All right, so back to the order of business. Public hearing is where we've arrived. We have 5 pieces for the public hearing. It is proposed ordinance 3, the sale of Kennedy Garage, proposed ordinance 6, sale of 355 James Street. Also, before I move on, I said September 4th when I called the meeting to order, which I think for the first time in 8 years I said the wrong date. Yeah, but we all know what day it is. Proposed ordinance 8, sale of 511 Mohawk Street. Proposed ordinance 10, the sale of 624 Tracy Street. And proposed ordinance 12, the sale of 416 Nielsen Street. We do have one person signed up to speak for a public hearing this evening. It is Robert Schofield. If you could please come forward. Please state your name and the piece that you are signed up to speak on, and then you may begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Bob Schofield. I work for NBHS. I think most of you probably know that. And I'm here tonight to talk about the Kennedy Garage. First and foremost, I want to answer the question, why do we want to buy the Kennedy Garage? So earlier on, when we started this project, building a new hospital downtown, an awful lot of people questioned whether or not it would draw a lot of business to downtown Utica. Well, I'm pretty proud to say an awful lot has happened over the past 6 years since we've announced that, including the addition of 200 additional physicians working at MBHS. We'll make reference to that. It's different than what you see on the billboards. We've added residency programs, and with those residency programs bring physicians that are coming to our new facility. So with that, we recognize the fact that the Kennedy Garage had been apparently offered and sold to another party, and that fell through. So at that particular point, we decided it was maybe a best time for us now to consider doing so. Initially, we didn't have the growth in our organization that we are now experiencing. We need that parking not because we're replacing what we'll be using in the county parking garage, but rather to enhance the overall parking scheme in the downtown area. With the addition of new employees, with the addition of additional patients coming to our campus, we believe that it's essential that we have that extra space to park. We also recognize the fact that the garage needs a fair amount of work. I don't know if anyone's been through that garage in a while, but it would require some significant renovations. But we also recognize the fact that there could be some other legal dealings associated with the parking garage, and we're fully prepared to help address and support getting through those actions. So we want to let you know that we understand that's maybe taking place. We also want to explain why all of a sudden we decided we wanted the garage. It's because we're growing. Exactly what all of us want to have happen in downtown Utica. Questions?
Technically, it's public hearing, so we don't have any questions.
Oh,
on the
I'm sorry.
floor. But that's fine.
So I'll
would
go
you like
sit down,
to add
cancel it
anything
down.
else? Yeah. If you want to anticipate any more questions and answer them, you may. Yeah.
So it would be so when would we start work on that? As soon as it were closed, we would start. So we've already done the engineering study, just so you know, in preparation. If once the property is closed, and by the way, we did make our required down payment, so the city does have that in hand. We will not be taking out a loan for this. We'll pay cash, so it's not contingent on a mortgage or a loan. We would close immediately, and we would commence temporary fixes of some areas that need desperate attention right now, immediately, and then have a well laid out plan for a full renovation of the Kennedy Garage, including the rooftop portion, which needs a lot of love now. As I parked over there and I see a lot of police barriers on top of that location. Right, and it's yeah, correct. No, that wasn't a question. I was just jogging my memory. Thank you. We have had conversations with the city, and we will maintain parking in the parking garage for the city for those that are currently parking there. Both the city and the Mohawk Valley Water Authority are using parking spaces in that garage, and we did say we would continue to provide those spaces.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. It is a public hearing, so I'm going to do a last call for the public hearing. public hearing on.
Mr. President.
All right, we're good. Public hearing's closed.
You want to close the public hearing?
Unless she came in to speak for the public hearing? Yeah, because this is a public hearing, I would like to invite you up, even though you were not here at 7. It is a public hearing, so please come to the podium. Thank you. Please state your name and the piece you're speaking on.
I'm Deborah Barnes. I live at 1432 Lenox Ave, and I have a drug house next to me. It's 1430.
Oh, excuse me. So is this public? Hold on just one second. We're in a public hearing right now for
Right.
the sale of Kennedy Garage, 355 James Street. Are you
sorry.
here? So you would like to speak for public comment? We will add your name.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I want to.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you. Okay. We're I was like, this does not have to do with the hospital right now. All right. All right. The public hearing is now closed. So we will now move on to the pieces. Would someone like to move anything from committee?
I'd like to move ordinance number 3 to sale of Kennedy Garage, Mr. President.
Okay, is there a second? We have a second from Councilperson Friend. Any opposed to pulling the sale of Kennedy Garage proposed ordinance 3 dated 9/20/2023 from committee?
I just have a question.
Okay.
We just got this paper from Fogel and Brown,
Oh,
and
yes.
I want to know what our attorney says about this.
So this was delivered, to be delivered on the night of the public hearing. The council has received it. Our attorney would not have anything to speak on this specifically. Do you have any, how would you phrase?
Well, I'm just looking at the first couple of lines. It says, unlawfully, if it approves a purported agreement entered into Utica URA, sell of Kennedy Garage to the Mohawk Valley Health Systems. I just want to know where we stand on that and if we're clear. That's all.
So I'll defer that to Judge Garamone, but as far as commenting on the paperwork included in the letter, at this time, I can't provide any comment on that. But as far as your first question, I think that.
All right, please restate the question for Judge Garamone so that he can
Well, it's just in
respond.
the first paragraph. I mean, it says right there, unlawfully approves the purported agreement entered into the Utica Urban Out URA to sell Kennedy Garage to the Mohawk Valley Health Systems. I just want to know if we're clear and we're good. That's all.
Judge Garamone?
Not speaking of the merits of the claim, because all you have is a notice of claim. You do not have a lawsuit. And your act is not illegal. I never agree that when they say that the common council's acts are illegal. This is merely a civil transaction, and if the Corporation Council of the City of Utica, with the advice of Charlie Brown, of course, approve the transfer and sale of this property to someone other than the original contract party, I stand that I have no objection to anything that Mr. Brown feels and presents of this nature is legal. And without, whether you approve or don't approve, there would probably maybe be a lawsuit. There may never be a lawsuit. Another claim doesn't mean there will be a lawsuit. Those claims just put you on notice. But if you're worrying about whether you're doing an illegal act by selling the garage, it's my opinion you are not. That's all I'll say about that.
Mr. President, may I have the floor?
If we would like to discuss the legislation, I'm going to require that we process the motion to pull it out of committee first.
Sure.
So there's a motion and a second to pull this out of committee. Is anyone opposed? No one's opposed. This piece is now out of committee, and you may have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is there anybody that could tell me who Downtown Utica Development LLC, who the LLC representatives are?
The previous owners.
I know who they are, but I want it cleared for the record, obviously. Thank you. I said I would like for Downtown Utica Development LLC, who is their representatives?
Who's the representative?
Of Downtown Utica Development LLC, because I don't see that they're noted in any component of this memo from Attorney Fogel.
I'll answer. This is how I'm going to answer the question, specifically and directly. This was presented to myself and Attorney Bill Borrell. And I was directed to, as it's addressed, make sure that on the night of the public hearing, this was distributed to the council. That came from Attorney Michael Fogel to me via email, and this is an LLC. So
Okay, so with that
that's-
said, I'll just make for clarification purposes that in the original purpose of the Kennedy Garage to the Mohawk, or well, Kennedy Garage from the city of Utica, that Bowers Construction was involved in the sale of the property. So I would imagine that
they were here
the-
representing the original purchase offer, yes.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that Downtown Utica Development LLC is still affiliated with Bowers Development. So I mean, they're two, I just want to make sure they're not two separate entities, because I think that has to be clear with this council as far as moving forward with the termination of this sale of the property, is that Bowers Development does have several other properties and transactions with the city that they haven't fulfilled. And this needs to be clarified, because I think that covering under an LLC is a huge problem, especially when we get a letter from an attorney with Bowers' name attached to it, saying how they've owned several properties inside the city, from the Bleecker Street property
Well,
and
that's
several
what I'm
other
getting
sales.
at.
No, and I
To
just
speak about
wanted
this
that to be
directly, I can only say this came from Downtown Utica Development LLC.
Right,
We all
so-
know because we were the council members at the time.
Well, I
that they
wasn't.
were
I wasn't
here
on the
representing
council.
this.
I wasn't on the council
Right,
at the
not always,
time
but it was
of
public,
that.
is my
But
point.
I just think that needs to be clarified with the council that, I don't agree with this administration on many things, but I think that this was probably one of the better moves with the Utica Development LLC to terminate this contract, seeing now they haven't fulfilled any other contract. Many contracts with the city, what they promised to develop. And I drive down 1800 Bleecker Street almost every day, and I see what a disgusting mess that actually is, that the city has to deal with. So I don't see a problem with that termination, and I wish them well, and if they in their future endeavors in a lawsuit with the city.
Mr. President, I'd like to move the vote on the sale of Kennedy Garage, sir.
Second.
All right, your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call for a motion to pull ordinance 6, the sale of 355 James Street.
Motion, Mr. President.
Second.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, the ordinance approving the designation of Victor L. Rodriguez as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of GML for the purpose of the sale of 355 James Street has been pulled. It's a sum of $35,000 from the URA. We just held the public hearing. Your votes.
Oh, Dennis. Dennis.
Make a motion.
Oh, yeah, oh, yes. Your vote. Yeah, there you go.
I want to vote.
Thank you.
9 yeas adopted.
All right, can we have a motion to pull ordinance 8?
Moved.
All right, DeBrango's the second on that. Ordinance approving the designation, any opposed? All right. Ordinance approving the designation of Anthony Miola as an eligible and qualified project sponsor under GML for 511 Mohawk Street, sum of $250 from URA to Anthony Miola. Public hearing was just held. Your votes. Yeah.
8 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Is there a motion to pull ordinance 10?
Motion to move ordinance 10, the sale of 624 Tracy Street.
Second.
All right, Friend is the second. Any opposed? 624 Tracy Street is on the floor. It's a sum of $250. It is Richard Thrasher and Marilyn Thrasher to landscape their adjacent property. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Ordinance 12.
Mr. President.
416 Nielsen.
Yep, Mr. President, request to move Nielsen Street, please.
All right, thank you. Any opposed? 416 Nielsen is on the floor. It's a sum of $250. We just held the public hearing. It's actually going to Utica Municipal Housing Authority. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you very much. Next order of business is public comment. We have, where's the sheet? There we go.
have two people signed up to speak this evening, well, three, actually. The first is Jared Tuff. Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. We do have multiple speakers this evening, so
3 minutes.
please, Thank you very much. Please state your name and you may begin.
Jared Tuff. I don't have much to say. I just want to say that I have been seeing some positive actions being done in the city for the complaints of gentrification and just the what I would call white supremacy. And I've been seeing some good. I've been talking with a few people, and we're planning on doing different things. I've spoke with Brian Thomas of Urban Home Renewal and Crystal Curley. I've been speaking with Vince, and just it's going in a positive way. So I do want to let you guys know that, and I do want to also let you guys know before I even stepped to the federal level or even went to the community, which I did come to you guys, and I just feel like I was just ignored. And when you hear the betterment of the city, I didn't feel it included me and black people. So I always heard the betterment, but I never felt included. I'm starting to feel a little more included. There's starting to be, different employment and hiring methods being looked at that I see are being done. I do want to say that speaking with the community, especially the youth, we might need to come up with a program too, because they're allowed to be talked to. We're allowed to, state our opinions, but the things they say, it really does bother me a little bit. They talk about burning down houses that they feel were taken from them. They talk about being violent. I even had to report to the FBI that the mayor had his life being threatened by one of them. So I just want to say, maybe we could come together to try to come up with something for the youth, because that we could just, really get together. I do want to move forward in a positive manner. Like I said, I did feel left out of this committee when I came to the committee. The committee just would move on and wouldn't even talk about it, and the rebuttals wouldn't be about what I was talking about. But I'm starting to see positive change, so maybe we could continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next speaker this evening, Larry Tenori. The Common Council has provided you with Section 3244, a public comment period rule. Are you in agreement with this?
No.
What?
Yes.
All right, thank you. You may begin. State your name.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks, Council. Excuse my attire. I wasn't planning on even being here. I don't think I've spoken here since George Bush was president. But I figured I'd get up, and since I am here, I wanted to talk about the bike lanes. And I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Do not want to talk about that. I do have a serious issue, though. That maybe, I think probably everybody in this room can, I shouldn't say that, but should be able to agree on. It's something I've been talking to every council member that would pretend to listen to me for years now. But that is redistricting. It's been 23 years. The World Trade Centers were still standing the last time this council redistricted. As the judge knows, it's constitutionally required that every 10 years you redistrict. The county's done it 3 times since the state, federal government has done it. Utica hasn't done it since the 2000 census. As we know, Utica's grown. The planning numbers I've looked at shows that mostly the growth has been in Cornhill. South Utica's actually lost population. So there's been a shift in the city of Utica in 23 years. And if you believe in one person, one vote, it should be important. I don't know why the council hasn't done it in 23 years. It's always been done every 10 years. Right now, if somebody challenged it legally, I'd bet my life on it that it would be ruled unconstitutional, the districts in the city of Utica. Not a bad thing, and no one here's fault. I'm just saying, maybe that's something. I know the majority leader has always been a champion of charter revision. Maybe that's something he could take on or suggest, maybe putting together a revision commission. We can, before someone does challenge it, and just briefly an idea that I've brought up a million times, I guess I'll say it here. While doing it and while looking at a revision commission, a way to save money as we streamline, we can actually, it's an idea I've had for years, but while doing the redistricting, Utica used to be 9 districts, no council at large. No offense to council at large or council president, but I don't understand why Utica has a council president's position or at large positions. We often hear that we refer and defer to the district representative anyways. I think we can save money and get better representation for the people of Utica at the same time by eliminating the council president position, eliminating all 3 council at large positions. So that's a net savings of 4 positions. But then when you're redistricting and going through the districts, as Utica's grown, go to 7 districts, wards. You get smaller representation, which in theory should be better representation. And by the way, this doesn't affect me, I don't even live in Utica anymore. But I think it's a great idea. You get better representation with 7 wards. They have less people to represent. You elect, Utica's the only body that has an independently elected, non-voting council president. No offense, you're doing great. But I'm just saying, you're in a position that has existed for a long time. But the county government, the chairman of the board is a regularly elected district, and he votes. Congress, you have the House Speaker and the majority and minority leaders are regular representatives. They elect them, they run the meetings, they vote. Same thing with the US Senate, same thing with the Assembly, same thing with the Senate, so it's very easy. You elect a majority leader, a minority leader, and then you elect a chairman. And they just sit up there and do exactly what you do, but they vote. So you save 3 positions by eliminating all 3 council at large, council president, and go into 7 districts, so you have a smaller district. You could eliminate some of the districts with the overlap, like the 6th ward that goes a little bit into East Utica. You could do all this while redistricting, and you could also follow the law, I guess, by doing that redistricting process. So it's just an idea, throwing it out there. You don't like it, throw it back. Thank you, guys. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. We have one more speaker this evening, Deborah Barnes. And I'd like to remind anyone speaking that remonstrances and appeals is later in the order of business, in which case council people may address things that people did speak to. Deborah Barnes, the Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes.
Please state your name and you may begin.
Well, I'm sorry I came in here like a raging lunatic.
Oh, no,
Sorry.
no, you were fine. You may be
It's-
Yeah.
As you can tell, this is my first meeting. I'm just very frustrated. I've lived on Lenox for 12 years. I've had no experience like this in my life. And it started about 3 years ago. Lenox, yes, it can be very hectic over there. But 3 years ago, I had a guy move in next door, and it became a drug house. I've called the Utica PD several times. They've been over there several times. There's been 3 bodies that have been removed from that house, deceased. I have 2 grandchildren that I can not have at my house due to needles being left outside in my yard. On the sidewalks, it's not safe for my grandkids. It's a shame, because my grandchildren are young. I talked to the landlord, who his name is Ed Smith. I just talked to him yesterday, and I've been in contact with him the last 3 years and have asked him to evict these people. Now that COVID is over, he said to me that he went to the courts, that they can't evict them because it's a disease. I understand it's a disease. I'm a nurse, I get it. But I should not have to live in my home like a prisoner, not being able to go outside and enjoy my yard because I'm afraid of what they're going to do or what I have to see. I have to see drug deals done in front of my house, which I shouldn't have to. I'm a taxpayer, my taxes are paid up to date, and it's very frustrating that I don't get any help from, and I don't mean to disrespect the Utica PD in any way, because every time I do call them, they come, but they're not doing anything by the time that the Utica PD comes. I just watched a young girl the other day sniff heroin right in the driveway. I mean, why should I be subjected to that? I shouldn't have to be. I'm just asking for some help. I don't know what else to do. Codes have come because in the backyard is junk from wherever they're getting it from. If they're stealing it, I don't know. Bags and bags of garbage up to their windows. rats are coming. I don't want to be infested with rats. I'm not a dirty person. Why do I have to live like this? So I don't know what to do anymore. I just felt I needed to come to this meeting. I looked it up online, and that's why I showed up. It said that the meeting started at 7:30. I didn't know it started at 7.
That's all right. You're fine.
I
That's
mean,
why
I'm frustrated.
okay. Let me know when you're done with public comment, and then I would like to suggest something, but we can't interrupt your actual
No,
public
go
comment
ahead.
legally.
I mean, I could go on and on and on. I'm
Okay.
just, like I said, I'm just very frustrated.
All right, thank you. All right. Once you conclude, if you could please just make sure you give your address to Deputy Chief Noonan. There are things that can be done in these situations, so please give your name, address, and everything to Deputy Chief Noonan, and we can address that through some of the mobile units we have, et cetera. So if you could, he will take your name, et cetera, right now. Thank you.
Okay.
We spoke, we're good.
Yep,
Okay,
I
you're
spoke
good?
to him earlier.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. I just wanted to make sure that, even though we have to move on with our order of business, that can be taken care of. All right.
Yep. Like I said, I'm just very frustrated. I didn't know where else to turn. I hate to keep bothering the Utica, PD. I understand there's a lot going on, in the city of Utica. But for 3 years, I mean, it's got to come to an end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that does conclude public comment period. If anyone is watching or in the audience who has not been here before and wondering why the council's not interacting with public comment like that, it is our rules of order that we listen, consume the information, and then contact whoever was commenting after the meeting and address issues. Thank you. Moving on. We have no common council guests this evening. We do not have communications from the mayor. Do we have a cash report?
Yes, the City of Utica cash report for August 2023 totals $67.217 million received and filed.
Thank you. Reports from the city officers. Corporation Counsel,
Nothing to report.
Deputy Chief Noonan,
Nothing to report.
Bill Krasinski.
Nothing to report.
Thank you very much. All right, we're good. No one else is here. Moving on. Petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. First District, Councilmember Katie Aiello, you have the floor.
Oh, yeah, the only thing I really wanted to bring up tonight is if you haven't seen Varick Street yet, go out and check it out. They're doing a whole streetscape down there, so all the string lights are hung up across the way. There will be new trees planted. I know that's everybody's big concern, but it's looking great over there, so kudos to engineering and everybody who's been working on that. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Second District, Councilmember Robert Burmaster.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Ms. Burns for coming out. You can reach out to me anytime. I live right around the corner. I ride by your house. I know exactly where you are. Before you leave, I'll make sure I get your card. You call me anytime, and I'll work with the city, and we'll see what we can do for you. I want to give a shout out to my oldest son today. It's his birthday, so that means he's getting older, and so am I. But happy birthday, Bobby. And I want to mention next Wednesday night that at the 5 Points, we have a Meet the Candidate night at 6 o'clock. I encourage all West Utica or anybody in the city to come meet the 3 candidates. It should be interesting and should be fun. And I guess that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Third District, Councilmember Celeste Friend, you have the floor.
I have nothing this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fourth District, Councilmember and Majority Leader Frank Miola, you have the floor.
Mr. President, I'll yield my time to my colleague.
Thank you. Fifth District, Councilmember Venice Urban.
The only thing I have to talk about is Harvest on the Hill is coming up. It's an annual event that's being done in the Cornhill area in District 5. And they actually reached out to me today that they're a little short on donations. So if anybody feels the need, they can get in touch with me or get in touch with the organizers. Who called me? Mona Lisa called me up. I think a lot of people know her, and they're looking for funding to be able to put that on.
And that keeps a lot of kids from going to different areas, because they usually go to different areas to get candy and celebrate Halloween. So it's a good event, it's grown, and they're looking for funding. Thank you.
Thank you. 6th District. Councilman Joe Beatrice, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple things first. I think I wore my pink shirt tonight to honor all the breast cancer months. I attended football games over the weekend, and I seen everything. It's a terrible disease that probably touches almost all of our families, and it's nice to see people out there, you know, bringing attention to this terrible disease. Next is, remember, we started on this past Sunday. We have green waste pickup at the street, runs through November. So you can leave your leaves, your green waste does not have to be in a pail. Thirdly is, I forgot to mention last time that I'm going to be a grandfather. So my daughter is going to have a baby boy, and I want to congratulate her. I forgot to say it last time, and I'm saying it now. The other thing that really upset me, I was listening to talk radio on 9/26 when I heard Mayor candidate Friend make a statement that said South Utica is the most desirable part of the city.
Actually, you can continue, but please address Councilperson Friend as council member in the context of the meeting, please. That way we're not introducing
I'm
our
never
current
mentioning it
runs
again.
into the floor. Thank you.
Okay. Basically, she basically said South Utica is the most desirable part of the city. Being the 6th Ward council person, I was very offended and hurt by this statement. I'm very proud to represent the people of the 6th Ward. The 6th Ward is a very desirable area, which pays as high taxes as anybody in the city. If South Utica is higher, it's very, very close. I'm talking by the information I have from the controller, okay? But not just the 6th Ward. I would think my fellow colleagues that represent any other districts would be offended by that too. I think every place in the city of Utica, there's desirable areas. And the part that really bothers me, this person, so councilperson Friend, who I respect as a hard-working person and doing what she has to do, but it really bothers me that a person running for mayor would single-handedly...
Councilman, please, again, we cannot bring any type of...
the
campaign's at the status. This is a city business. I understand your remonstrances. But
any
thank you.
person in the area to single out a section really bothered me. And that's all I wanted to say, because I just really bothered me.
Thank you. All right. Moving on. Thank you. Minority Leader and Council Member at Large. Mark Williamson, you have the floor.
I have nothing.
Thank you. Council at Large, Samantha Colosimo-Testa.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the Lynch family for coming tonight. I know it's got to be hard for them to continue to rehash the events that happened, and I appreciated him stating that, you know, it didn't just take effect on him, it took effect on a whole community. Being at the football game at the time, well, shortly after that incident had happened, it definitely took a hit on, you know, not only as a school teacher, but a representative of the city. And, you know, shout out to the school district and the police department, fire department, all those were involved for the response and gathering the information that they had to get the gentleman that caused a whole bunch of sadness and scare, hopefully behind bars for a long time. With that said, the E.J. Herman race celebrated its 80th year. Again, all the volunteers for that do a heck of a job bringing in students from all over the area to that event. And, you know, going on 80 years, it gets better each year, and you don't think it could, and it did. So a job well done through all the volunteers. Also coming up, October 8th through the 14th is Fire Prevention Week. I am the coordinator for my school district, and I thank the fire department for always continuing to put their best effort forth in bringing awareness to our students. And this year it states, well, their motto is cooking safety starts with you. Pay attention to fire. So With that ramping up, I hope that everyone, continues to put that focus on the importance of making sure that not only children but adults have a plan in place going in and out of their homes, and to wherever they are, be aware of their surroundings. And that's it. I hope everybody has a wonderful Wednesday evening. Thank you.
Thank you. President Pro Temp, Council at Large, Frank DeBrango, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sam mentioned fire prevention week. Just a thought came to my mind. I know the fire department does a great job that 1 week, but why don't we have gun violence prevention week from UPD? Maybe we could be the first city to start that up in the schools and maybe educate some of these kids for the week, whatever month we want to pick. Obviously, they have to be in school, and maybe we could just kind of build on that and start something new. So that's just a thought that I just had when she mentioned that the fire department. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I do have a few things this evening, nothing too crazy. The first actually was Harvest on the Hill, Councilman Irvin. I had just downloaded the form so that we could support it. I've been to that event. It's really great for the community. We always talk about community engagement, and this is one of those events that really shines with that, so I'd encourage everyone else to do what Councilman Irvin was suggesting and contribute to that as well. So you will see something from me, Council. The next thing is Columbia Street. This is kind of, well, it's not funny, but it's, I posted a video of Columbia Street today because I was excited to go down Columbia, and I said how it was open because there was no signs up that the road was closed, and I was excited to go down Columbia Street. So I just want to let everyone know that it is still closed, apparently, if you go down there. But at the time I drove by it, the lights were flashing, and it was blinking, and all the road closed signs were moved out. So I took a cruise down and posted about that. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But no, it was cool. And I do look forward, though, to that corridor being open again. That's really a connection between downtown and Barrett Street, and really puts the city back together. Once that street is open again, you're going to really see a lot of different, commerce between the two districts, I think, again. It's been kind of a wall through that construction, and as we open back up and knit the city back together, I think things are really going to look good and put things in good order. The next thing is the council president thing. I didn't plan on speaking of this, but I want to mention something because it's interesting you brought up, Mr. Tenori. So this has been brought up multiple times. I'm not arguing against or for it, but I just wanted to add a little flavor to the thought process. Under New York state law, there's multiple different ways to set up a council. One way is to have a council president elected from the body of the city. Another way is to have that council president elected from the council once the council is, elected. And they would elect that from the body. At the same time, they would designate their rules, etc. The other piece that would have to be thought through is the actual succession of the mayor. The purpose within our charter, not only to just lead these meetings of the council president, is to be a chartered member of the board of E&A, but then the piece everyone does not necessarily think about is when one is elected council president, you are in that line of succession to be mayor, which is why the council president carries the same term as the mayor, has to run the same election at the same time and from the same body of the electorate, the actual full city. And it has been established for many years that that is the purpose for keeping that separate, because people want to elect a council president at the same time and from the same voter base that they are electing the mayor, because they are choosing a potential replacement. And while it seems far and few between, we know someone who this has happened to. He's running for county legislator in South Utica right now, Tim Julian. He was council president, and then the next day he was the mayor. So it's a very real thing, and if one was to remove the position, we would have to work out how that functions, because as constituents have reached out to me about this, they've stated if we did do that, and say a district council person was elected from one of the smaller districts,
that person could be in line to be mayor. And rather than that being chosen from the people, it would be chosen from the council. So that's just another piece of it that I've actually had provided to me that isn't just my thoughts. So it's interesting thoughts. Thank you. All right, moving on. All right, the next piece, we do have people here. The piece is going to be introduced. So whether it goes into committee or not, I'd like to actually call for us to introduce the intermunicipal agreement with the school district for school security officers, just so that if for some reason there are any things that do need to be addressed, we do have the superintendent here, we do have a member of the school board here, and I'd like to respect the fact that they have stayed here to possibly address any questions.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to put it in committee. There is some clarification that I have on behalf of myself as a Utica City School District employee that I'd like some clarification on before we do vote on that.
Okay.
With that said, there are some
can-
some other questions that I do have in regards to that
Can
as
we
well.
make a motion to introduce that
Sure,
first?
I'd like
That
to
way
make.
it's on the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce that legislation,
All
and
right,
by
is
no
there a
means.
Yes, there's a second. I'd like to call for a vote for it also, Mr. President.
I'd like
All
to
right.
second that motion.
All right.
All right, so
Time out.
seconded.
I-
Before the vote, if there's a preceding motion,
Thank you.
I do have to process that. So
Thank you. And again, for clarification purposes, I think with due diligence to the rest of the council, that we did just get this piece, and I would like something in writing as a member of the body, because I do have to have justification for recusing myself from a vote, and I think that's only fair, and I would hope my colleagues would have the same respect for myself and councilperson Williamson, who is also at large with me, to get some clarification on whether or not we are able to vote on this. So there are some clarifications, and I wouldn't hope you would jeopardize your position as a council person with your job if that were necessary in order to recuse yourself. So again, we got this yesterday, and I would only think that was fair that they give us a little time. With that said, if somebody wants to call.
well, just
Mr.
to be clear, this
Mr.
was-
President, may I finish my statement?
No.
With that said.
this was introduced today.
Right.
That's all I wanted to tell you. It's not yesterday.
So with that said.
Thank you.
It was given to us yesterday. It was dated October 3rd, so that's why I was saying that was the memo that we had.
Mr. President, then we need a Thursday rule waiver to continue the discussion on, sir.
Okay.
All right, can I finish my motion? Thank you. With that said,
Yeah.
if the council were to call for a meeting tomorrow, meeting Friday, meeting Saturday morning, meeting at 3 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock in the afternoon, I would have no problem to come and even support the legislation, whether or not I had to recuse myself. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right. Is there a second to placing this in committee?
Second.
All right. Please vote on placing this in committee on the board, please.
That's no.
Okay. It is not in committee.
It don't go down too many times.
Right. All right. So it's still on the floor.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to vote on this
Well,
piece of
there-
legislation, please.
You don't need to make a motion to vote. Now that that motion has been defeated, to place this in committee.
Mr. President.
I would like to open this to the floor. If you have any, there's any debate, now that this is up for a vote.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm a little bit confused that when our pre-meeting, we all came out here. Councilperson Friend, you were the main person. It came out, you just got it. We couldn't even discuss it because you couldn't read it. We just got it. Now all of a sudden, everybody agreed we're gonna put it in committee. Councilperson Colosimo, she's willing to have a meeting tomorrow, so we all wanna support it, but go through it. So this is kinda like another thing that, boom, give it to us tonight, whatever it is, and we're supposed to vote on it. It's not the way things should be. I mean, I just think that we need to just go over this. I'm for this. Chief Noonan, he talks about it. I agree with it. But it's the principle of this. You, for one,
It's okay.
started from the beginning of this council term, always.
No,
And I don't mean
no.
to be giving you a hard time, but your whole thing was transparency. Let's read things. Let's not just get things shoved down our throat. You did it with the, I don't want to talk about complete streets, but you did it there. We're doing it tonight again. We seen what we did. Let's have a meeting, read the legislation, and vote on it. Every person in this room probably agrees with it. I just can't, listen, you guys are gonna laugh at me. I've been a soda man my whole life, okay? I can't just read a big piece of legislation the night it's given to me and not understand it, okay? We need to go through this stuff, and we need to be a better council by doing that stuff. There's nothing wrong with having a meeting to go over it one day. That's all I have to say.
Mr. President, may I have the floor?
Yes.
May I direct this, since we earlier discussed it? Dr. Davis, with respect to my position and my position with the school district, if we were to have a meeting tomorrow, just so that I can get some clarification on whether or not that if I vote on this, there's a conflict of interest with me, would there be a problem holding this vote off until tomorrow? Is this time sensitive? I mean, because if I'm allowed to vote and support on this, I will as a council person, but I just want to make sure that myself and Councilman Williamson, as employees of the city, do not have a direct conflict if we were to vote on this and it come back on us.
So, two things. One, obviously, we can't schedule a meeting tomorrow per the rules.
Right.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, I would like to invite Dr. Davis up to the table and explain this legislation. The reality is, this is up for a vote right now.
So I think that the clarification, if it's
And
time
what I would like to
sensitive-
do, as far as whether or not you should recuse yourselves within the scope of voting, that is something you should ask Judge Garamone now.
I did ask him.
Because regardless of your requests, this looks like it's going to a vote right now.
Sure.
So,
Mr. President, with all due respect, Judge Garamone did bring this up to me earlier.
Okay.
And for clarification, I would like it in writing on my behalf, because we do have to have a reason for justification for a recusal of vote, and that's the only thing that I'm asking for. And I know this is time sensitive, and trust me, I came in this meeting willing and ready to vote on this. That's all I'm asking, is that we have a little time to get some information on whether or not that I could be held liable as a council person and an employee of the district if I do vote on that. So,
all right. So,
thank you very much.
Judge Garamone. Larry. Judge. Dr. Davis is going to address the council, so I'd like you actually also engage with that in case there's any other questions. Thank you. I know we were going back and forth there, so thank you very much. Dr. Davis, if you could please, just in summary, explain to the council how this agreement came about. Yes, we are. The motion was to introduce this piece to bring it to a vote, which had a second. The preceding motion, which was to place it in. It didn't go in committee, so it's on.
Somebody can move it.
It is moved. That's where we are.
All you need is 5 votes.
Okay, thank you. That's exactly what we're doing. We're good. Yes. So, Dr. Davis, thank you for staying. If you could, you don't have to go into grave detail, just explain the process to which we arrived at this from your vantage point so the council understands that. It would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
So I arrived July 11th, and as you know, I'm a retiree. I've been in education 41 years, and I've been in 15 districts. So the model that we had at the school district was very difficult to rely on because we hired our own police officers after their shift. The problem with that is sometimes they could be there on time, sometimes they couldn't. Depending on if there was, something going on, it was not a reliable framework to ensure daily safety of all the students. We have 1/6 of the population at the high school. We have close to 3,000 students that are at the high school. We have middle school coverage, and then the elementary, we work with the sheriff's department. So I met with chief and deputy chief. We talked about a model that most districts embrace, which is where we contract with a service through the PD. The other piece to that is when they're working for us, we don't have the expertise or the ability to train them. I'm not a police officer. I'm an educator. They would be under with this new model, they're under the direct control of the UPD in terms of their orders, in terms of their training, and in terms of logistics if there's an emergency. So this is a safer model, and it ensures that they have the proper training, and that we certainly have a strategic plan in place if there were to be a tragedy or an emergency. And it is a model that most schools are using, and it's very effective. So we had a discussion, I came down to City Hall, we met with the mayor
He said that and I don't want to speak for him, but during the meeting, he did say he would support it, me moving forward. So we did go to the Board of Education, our board. They are supporting the change in the model. They do see how important it is to have highly trained, a full complement, of police officers as outlined in the agreement on a daily basis to ensure the safety of not only our students, but our staff. So we saw some holes. We thought this model would be better. It would ensure, to fill those holes. The other thing that we were concerned about is we went ahead and because I didn't know your process, so I apologize. So we went ahead, we voted on it. It came over to the mayor's office, and then I didn't realize that this was something that had to go before the Common Council, so my apologies. So we went ahead and we did give a 30-day notice to our officers that are with us and to let them know that, under their current contract with us, we have to give 30-day notice. So that clock started ticking yesterday. Some of them knew that we were moving in this direction, so they already resigned. So as we are right now, we have a problem. So if it goes down tonight and it doesn't get voted on, then the district would be forced to really unfortunately go to the county because we have an emergency then.
So that wouldn't be the case tonight regardless.
Okay.
I would call for different motions, but I just wanted to make sure you could present is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, and I don't want to put
Okay.
pressure on the council. I can only say, and I respect your position, I just want to say that we have been, meeting collaboratively and working with the mayor, working with the UPD. They've been fantastic, by the way, on everything, on the extra assistance at football games and different events that we've had since the tragedy. And it's just been a good partnership. So if there's any questions, I'm here to help.
Yeah.
All right, so hang on, before we start, I'm gonna process the questions. Please address the chair like we normally do. State who the questions are for. The questions will be answered. And then if you have any questions about how this is procedurally gonna happen after the questions are complete, we're gonna save that conversation till after the questions for Dr. Davis are complete, okay? All right.
Yes.
Councilperson Friend was requesting the floor first. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I do just want to thank you for being what, by all accounts, has been a really excellent caretaker of our school district through these really trying times. And I'm sure that when one becomes an interim, one doesn't expect, within one's first month to have to go through this. And from everything I've heard, you've done a really excellent job, and I deeply appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I just want to clarify something that you just said. From your point of view, you would like this legislation so that we can move forward with this agreement to happen as quickly as possible for the sake of the general overall safety of the school.
Yes, that would be
Okay,
appreciated.
thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Mr. President, may I have the floor, please?
You may.
Okay, thank you. I think that the only thing that I'm going to say is that I'd rather err on the side of caution and to get this moving, and instead of wasting everybody's time, even though I did only get this legislation today with the fact of recusal, if Judge Garamone does allow that permission for myself and Councilman Williamson, again, to err on the side of caution to move forward with this, I mean, obviously working in the school district, the safety of our students come first. I will, and if anybody wants to bring it up after the fact that I recuse myself on behalf of this vote, I will move forward and I'll make that motion to go along with that.
So,
Because this, I don't want to.
Just real quick, I just want to take the floor
It's
back.
not fair.
I
It's
was
not
going
fair
to
to
address
us.
that once we're done with the questions, but I'll address it now. I was already going to state after this as chair that if you and Council at Large Williamson wanted to recuse yourselves as chair, I was going to state that that was appropriate because of what you stated earlier. And if you remove the two of you from this vote, there's 7 people on the floor who are going to vote on this. There's no issues with that.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's fine and it's understood. And the record will show that you absolutely were in support of this, and a recusal is absolutely not any type of protest against legislation. You're not voting. It's simply a recusal. All right, so anyone else, do you have any questions for the superintendent regarding the actual agreement?
No, I
regard-
just would like to say one thing to
No,
her.
If it's not regarding, oh.
It is regarding the agreement.
Okay, all
I
right,
just
thank you.
want to speak to her on what I talked about
Yes.
before. I've been for this. The only reason what I spoke of before about the committee is because that's what we talked before you came. You were gracious enough to come, explain everything about it. Deputy Noonan has told the same thing, so I've been for this the whole time. I just was, when you get something in front of you, and we've had this problem on this council in the past, that's the reason what I said before, but I am full support of this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And just one more.
Thank you.
point.
Hang on, because I'm
Sorry.
going around here. Councilman DeBrango, you had the floor next.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I'm just going to give you a hypothetical. Let's say a 12-year-old kid, whatever, 14-year-old kid. Let's say the police officer does overextend himself and maybe injures that person during an altercation. Who's responsible? The city of Utica may get sued for it, or will the school district defend our officers in that setting? Because they're in that setting. I just want to know what that, because I haven't read the whole legislation. I wish we could read it and ask
So
more
the
questions.
officers
but-
have been in the district since 2006, and
Mhm.
that hasn't been an issue in terms of they've conducted themselves in an appropriate fashion.
Right, but if there's a
So,
lawsuit,
I
who's
mean,
responsible?
Obviously, there's always responsibility on both parties, and both parties should have their own insurance coverage, which we thoroughly reviewed with legal, and I'll defer to your legal counsel.
I was just gonna say, you can never guarantee who's gonna be sued in a lawsuit.
Correct,
Both
correct. But if the
people-
officers weren't there, then we wouldn't be in a position. I'm saying you need officers, no doubt. But if the city's gonna be solely responsible, for an action of a police officer that wasn't right to a student, that's my worry that, are we gonna get the defense
So
from the
I'm going to give the floor to Deputy Chief.
But I do
Noonan.
have other
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
So we obviously incur liability, but that liability is factored into the cost of the service. So there's additional liability there, but when the number's calculated for the amount that's charged to the entity, whether it's a school district or any other entity we contract with, that liability is factored into that cost that we charge.
And if we can't provide the number of officers that's needed, do you outsource, do you get extra security officers, or you just roll with whatever we have available?
There's a range in the contract, it's 3 to 8, 5 to 8, I apologize. So, 5 is the minimum that we can go with, 8 is the maximum that we're willing to pay for. And if there were an issue, we certainly would have to look at our full complement, including the sheriff's department and the district. And if there were some emergency and we didn't have coverage, we would have to maybe shift from the elementary to the high school, junior high, and then reallocate our security protocol internally to cover those younger buildings. So we would have to look at that as a team in the event of that type of an emergency.
All right.
So we built that number on purposefully, the minimum 5, which we internally feel we can staff without an issue.
You don't foresee a problem double shifting for our officers? You don't want them on the street tired, I mean, that's gonna be an issue.
Right.
I know, I run a
So that's-
security agency.
That's why we did the range from 5 to 8. Ideally, they would prefer 8, but we didn't want to commit ourselves to a number that we couldn't safely provide.
All right. The other thing is, and I noticed, it just something to do with, I know it's just a resolution, but in number 3, the term, it just says, let's see, this agreement may be terminated upon 30 days written notice to the other party at said party's designated address. Any extension or renewal of said agreement shall be authorized by the school district, Board of Education, and the mayor. And I thought maybe it should be approved by the council at that time, because there's gonna be a new council, there's gonna be a new mayor coming up come June of next year. I think, could we just add it? I know it's a resolution, but could we add it to the?
What's the request to add?
It's a request to add some language to the
We're
contract.
giving the mayor and the Board of Education authority to just renew this agreement.
It's already
And
procedure.
there may be, the price per hour may go up next year, with the police contract going up 3%. I'm sure the price of officers at overtime rate
Can
will be
I,
going up, so we should be able to approve it as a council.
Can I just answer that from the
This
respective.
is what I'm just,
Well,
see
I mean,
this.
in all of these agreements that we've ever executed for the mayor, it's the current council that authorizes a current mayor to execute agreement. The current agreement we had under Pileman was in place for many years. Now, I don't know if the council 20 years ago approved that one or not, but
That was approved.
yeah, so many of these agreements always span a council. It's no different than Oneida County Solid Waste.
but we're approving a resolution for them to go ahead and do this.
I've been involved in the process, not just been on.
we should have
It's just something where.
So this ends June 30th, 2024.
Right, and they could renew it just by stamping it. It could be a new district, it could be a new Board of Education, it could be a new mayor.
Now, it says the mayor's authorized to execute this agreement.
So, if I could just comment.
Yeah,
Typically, our procedure anyways is if it's a renewal, a straight renewal of the contract, there's no changes to the terms, the mayor at that time will authorize it. If there's a change to the contract, so if next year the rates go up, or there's other
That's
terms that are
my concern.
negotiated, it comes before the council. That's
That's what I mean, that's-
procedurally how,
All of our shared
It doesn't
services.
have to be in writing if, I'm sure it's gonna go up. The hourly rate's gonna go up.
it's
I'm
not
sure.
that material to the contract, but if that's a request, I can certainly talk to, the school district and our.
So I
you know,
just wanted to
other
make sure
attorneys to
that-
include that in the contract. It's not part of the resolution, it's part of the contract itself.
Right, which typically with all our shared services agree, I just wanted to like assure you, that's why sometimes we get the renewals for the shared services agreements. Because they either expire or they need an amendment or change. to
Right, but
which
there's no
Corporation
price
Council
factor,
draws it up and
there's
comes
no
back.
price factor on, there's a price factor on here, the hourly rate. And if you're gonna, if a mayor says, I approve it, and now our overtime rate's $85 an hour that we're paying, plus, you know, a 25 or 22% above that, and we're only billing $78 an hour. I'm just saying that we should be able to have a say as a council on approving the extension of the contract. That's all I'm
It
saying.
usually says it's approved by the mayor and by the common council, and then the mayor of the city of Utica, typically in any memorandum that's passed.
So it does say this agreement, and this agreement does have the current price. And if it needs to change, they're gonna have to come back and
Right,
pass
it's
an
saying that
amendment.
it expires June 24th of next year without the common council's approval. So it's what he's asking is that with the renewal, that it gets sent to the common council even after the mayor or before the mayor executes the signature. So technically, the mayor can't even approve this memorandum without the common council's approval.
It says this agreement in this resolution. It doesn't
Right,
say
and then it
any
says-
further. It
Well, that's
doesn't.
what he just said, that's what he was stating. just for
So the
clarification.
contract says if they wish to renew the contract, that there has to be renegotiations, that everybody has to sign, everybody has to approve.
Well, I didn't read it. We didn't
I
have enough time to read it.
I understand,
So
but-
I'm just
Which is
asking.
understood, yeah.
But typically, the procedure is, for intermunicipal agreements, the council has to approve.
All right. I'm all for having extra police officers in the schools. I have no problem with that. I'm all for it. But I just don't think it's the right process, what we're doing. And I think you were right, Joe. People rushing and not asking questions, it's not the right thing to do. So if someone's looking to move on and maybe become a mayor, you better think twice before
right.
you
So let's-
lie to the public and
So,
say, I'm not voting on anything.
Councilman.
Okay, I'm not voting on anything in the district, I'm not voting on anything without reviewing it first. You did this a second time to everybody, it's not fair. We should be able to look at it, talk to our attorney, talk to fellow council members, and say, what is the best thing for the city? Well, you just throw it out there. You just do it because you have the majority. I'm part of the majority, I'm a Democrat. But boy, I would like to at least look at it. Just let me look at it for a while. Let's talk about it. Let's get the questions out. It's just not fair, but whatever. I gotta
All right.
live with it.
So, no, you don't have the floor right now because I just want to state something. Councilman DeBrango, I both.
Sorry I exploded, but it's not the right thing to do.
I both respect all of your comments and your questions. The reason I'm processing this the way I'm processing this vote is because it was introduced and the motion to commit was defeated. So this council is boxed into a vote right now because it looks like on the floor from what was defeated, it's coming to a vote. So I'm attempting to make sure that every single question that's on this floor, no matter how long we have to wait here, is answered to the point where if it's brought to a vote, which it's going to be, that's what's on the floor right now, at least you can get as much as you can out of it. So do you have any more questions? Because I'm just processing the will of this majority right now. So do you have any other questions before we move on?
I don't, but you backed me up into a corner. I would like to support it, but I'd like to see a little more detail of it.
I understand.
And more questions.
And
We
I
could
would-
sit here all night, and I'm sure other council members have questions as well.
I understand, and
But
this,
you're backed into a corner, so.
I'm
If I
with you.
vote no, I look like a fool, because I don't want security or extra police officers.
Correct.
You know, in
Mr.
the
President?
schools. And that's not true.
All right.
We should be able to review what's in front of us. We
Point
don't
of
have enough
order?
time.
Thank you. Okay,
Could
thank
I-
you.
Mr. President.
I just
could
wanted
make
to
a
let
point of
him
order?
finish. Hang on just one second. Rather than a point of order, because I was calling him to order already, would you like the floor?
Yes, please.
I
Thank
actually had the motion for the floor next.
I'm going to give her the floor because she hasn't spoken.
I would like to make the suggestion,
Okay.
in light of what you were saying, no matter how long we have to stay here, let's quickly go through this page by page with Ms. DeGiorgio, who clearly is very familiar with this, with Dr. Davis, and go through this and see if those questions that Mr. DeBrango and others have can get answered. Let's go through this.
Anyone?
Mr. President, a couple of things.
Hang on, hold on.
So, I would like to ask a couple questions, please.
So, wait, I would like to address this first. I don't think that's crazy. The first thing I'd like to ask is Dr. Davis, Mr. Cooper, do you have a few minutes?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much
few
for doing
minutes.
this right now. All right, no, I will be reading each section and processing that if we do it. Councilwoman Testa.
Thank
you.
you.
have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right.
So I appreciate the fact that my colleague to the right raised some questions, otherwise we would have already processed the motion to vote for it.
Right.
With that said,
Actually,
Mr.
so
Board
point
member-
of order from the council president. The reason we're doing this is because I'm actually facilitating this debate. That's why you're asking these questions, and it's because we're boxed into a vote here where it didn't go into committee. So I will continue to drive the meeting.
Sure, and just for clarification purposes, Dr. Davis, thank you for coming. I know that you came here originally on behalf of Mr. Lynch, so I appreciate you staying, because I'm not sure if you knew that this was getting brought up for a vote or there was any discussion on it. With that said, Mr. Cooper, when you were introduced this for the board to be approved at the Board of Education meeting, were you briefed on everything that you were given, or were you just given a piece of paper to vote on without knowing anything about it?
No, we had discussion.
You had discussion, so you didn't just get a piece of paper and say, hey, could you vote on this 10 minutes later, not knowing if you had to recuse yourself? So I just want to make that point of clarification that as a school board member, I appreciate your process. Unfortunately, we don't have that due process here on the council. And like I said, it was brought to my attention that there could be a possibility of a fact that I might have to recuse myself because of my relationship with the school district. And again, that's why this discussion was brought up, because I'm not still sure of my purpose here, whether I'm supposed to vote for it or against it. But I know this discussion was brought up well before the incident at Proctor High School. And I think that unfortunately that incident at Proctor High School moved this along to have it in front of us a little sooner than later. With that said, again, I still don't know what my position is, whether or not, but I will recuse myself because, again, I know that the safety of the students in the school district are more important than whether or not I could be brought up with something and a further point of voting on it. Therefore, I will recuse myself so that you do have that opportunity to move forward with this. So I thank you for your time, and I appreciate the process that your board has, but
Thank
we
you.
don't have that here. Thank you.
So I have a
No,
question.
I'm going to go to Councilman Williamson. He's been flagging me down. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what council people had this legislation before tonight? I'm curious, because it seems like everybody knows what's going on. I mean, everybody's voting on it already.
I put an
And
agenda
it-
in the paper, and this wasn't in the packet yesterday.
Exactly.
So that's.
So no one had access
I'm
to
just
this
being matter of
legislation?
fact.
No other council person had access to this legislation before we got here tonight?
It was literally presented this morning.
And then on the way in, Judge Garamone says, just because of my relationship with the school district, I would have to recuse myself. And I said, that's fine. What I'm good about it, I'm happy for it, it's the safety of the kids and everything else, but I will recuse myself tonight because of my relation. Now, you already got your 5, you got 7 actually, without us here, so it's still gonna go up. I mean, let's move it forward.
Thank you. Councilman Beatrice, here's the thing. As the chair, if things are being repeated at this point, I'm going to.
They're not repeated. I have
Okay.
2 questions.
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay, the first question for Dr. Davis. You mentioned there's 30 days until the contract's terminated. You mentioned that,
There's a caveat, can I interrupt?
yeah,
So we have to give them 30 days notice, but they resigned. already. So since they resigned, I don't know how many are left at this point.
Okay, but when they resigned, is it true that there's Utica police officers working in the schools, different ones that they put in to fill in for them?
Well, I'm contracting with the city for the extras.
So there is, you have police
For now,
officers there.
yes.
And my next question is to Eddie. Why is this coming in front of us when police and fire, how come nobody came to us for when they're contracted for Nexus and they're working at Nexus and in the auditorium and all that?
So it's not an intermunicipal agreement. So it's coming before you because it's an intermunicipal agreement with the school district. So if the police wishes to contract out, which they do for a number of different services, for the Odd, for Stanley, whatever it is.
Okay,
it's a separate
so, okay,
I
so,
think I can follow up on all that. So I
okay,
think
go on.
I don't want to speak for Dr. Davis.
Well-
The school district had, because of such a substantial amount of money, they had to enter into an MOU as opposed to contract service, which we do with
Okay.
the Odd, Stanley.
And again, like I've told you, I'm all for this too. I'm not for the way it's going. So my question of what I asked you about the 30 days before. So in essence, if we had a meeting and went over all of it in detail, okay, say whatever, 4 days or whatever, and we could all feel good about voting on it, it's not really, nothing's in jeopardy because you already have the people that are resigning, you have other police there. I'm just, like I said, I'm just uncomfortable. Councilman DeBrango brought up points just like that without going through it. That's my only point, okay? I mean, you know what? That's a great question. Like you said, we've been there for the longest time. There's never been a problem. But what if there is a problem? Is the city getting sued? I'm voting on this. Is the city getting sued? Is the school district getting sued? They're legitimate questions. And like I said, I'm for this, but I just think that we should really go over it. And I don't think sitting here at 8:30 at night reading the legislation is qualifying to go over it. That's just my opinion.
All right, thank you.
So just so the council knows, I came here for Jeff tonight.
Yes.
I just want you to know that I did not come here because I'm forcing a vote.
No. I get it.
I do want the council to know that, you know, this contract represents anywhere from $500,000 to $800,000.
Right.
And that if we have the full complement, you're talking $800,000 of federal funds. For us not to have an articulated agreement puts us at risk because when we sign off on the assurances for federal funds, we have to show the contracts of the backup to support how we're spending those funds. It can't just be sign a voucher. So that puts us at risk, you know, in terms of auditing and everything. So that's why we have a contract before you tonight. And I understand your position, but I don't want you to feel pressured that I'm here.
It's not you, it's not you.
So, with
Not you, I feel bad for you.
Dr. Davis, thank you, and this is greatly appreciated. Judge, I will. So, with respect to the fact that you are recusing yourself, briefly, you may have the floor again.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Briefly.
The only question that I have is, once this is signed, and obviously I'm assuming that it's gonna pass tonight, seeing how I had 5 votes to bring it to a vote. Once the mayor signs it, how long do you expect for the police officers to be inside the buildings? Now, this is only for JFK and Donovan, or JFK, Donovan and Proctor, correct? Not the elementary schools?
The elementary is covered by the county.
Yeah, and I love our,
Yeah,
our, they're the best, so, I mean, our school definitely has the best around, so
So we
I
would
appreciate
review
that.
this at the end of the year and renegotiate our contracts, just like we do with all contracts.
Right, and I guess I'll restate my question. How long until the police officers will be in Donovan, JFK, and Proctor, once this is passed tonight? What is your expected time? Tomorrow? Okay.
Yeah.
The mayor's just gotta sign it, and then we can go in from there, so I appreciate
I know
it.
that chief and deputy chief, they've already got, you know, tentative schedules ready to go, and they have volunteers ready for tomorrow.
I'm gonna sign up. I got 1 more year left, so until I
Okay.
can go on the police department. I'm gonna try it out.
All right, so thank you. At this time, I'm going to, if you would like to review this word for word, make a motion.
Mr. President, I'm good.
If there's no motion, we're not doing that.
No.
All right, so we're going to call the vote right now.
Do we need Thursday rule waiver first?
No, we do not, because this came down from legal.
Okay. I motion to move it then, please, Mr. President.
Yes, and if, may I qualify my vote, Mr. President? when you-
You may qualify your vote before the clerk actually pulls the lever. So your votes, please. Don't click it yet. Okay.
I'm thinking,
Okay, all right.
you know I'm for it, but it's just not, it's not the way to do things.
All right, so before you pull that lever, do you have anything else to qualify?
Well, first of all, yeah, I just want to explain one thing. UPD has a union as well, right? There's a contract between UPD and the city of Utica. Now you're extending that contract to cover the school district. I would imagine something has to do with the contract with UPD and the city of Utica. I would imagine you'd have to get, I don't know, I think the UPD union should be at least, are they aware of it? Do they know about this? They signed off on it as well, or you're just forcing them to go in on a volunteer basis?
No, it's all voluntary.
Yeah.
Frank, and it's
All right,
it's
well,
not controlled.
yeah, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. And I really appreciate your questions tonight, Councilman DeBrango, because I could see the wheels turning, and you just got this, so the wheels just started turning. So that's why I keep giving you the floor for more questions, because you keep thinking of things you want to ask. So thank you. This is vote qualification.
Yes.
Councilman Beatrice.
Yes, I am voting no on this tonight for the simple reason that I just think we needed more time to do it. I don't think it's the right way, so I am voting no on it. And I support it 100%, but I just don't like the way it came in front of us. And I would hope that we could come around, you know, it's gonna pass, and I am for it, just so you know, but I don't like the way this came about, so.
All right, thank you. Actually, I'm going to go to Councilperson Ayala, because she technically was the first person to ask for a vote qualification. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just, a lot of people are putting opinions out there of the speed of this vote, and I just want for clarification for people at home. It's about an 8-page document. I've read it 3 times now. I got here at 5:30, and then we had a half hour in between both meetings, and then another time sitting here. And I just don't want it to look like that just because there are people who are in favor of it. It's not because we're just fine with rushing votes. I believe in it. It's a great contract. And I can be sensitive to the fact that some people felt like they didn't have enough time, but that's not to say that other people are just making the wrong vote for the sake of it. So just want that on the record, and thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Irvin, you have the floor.
This will be quick. I know, Superintendent, that you were at the game when the young man got shot. I was also at the game. My son was at the game. And the thing that a lot of people don't know, the presence of the police department is probably what prevented something worse happening, because a lot more kids had guns. And it was only because of the police that were sitting there, standing there and rushed over, that a lot more didn't happen, because there were more kids with guns. And that's why I'm voting for it, because the presence of the police department is what's going to stop some of the violence that's going to be happening, or could be happening in the school, inside and out. Because if you think some of the things that you have in place are preventing guns from coming in, that's not true. And we know this. The streets talk all the time, and we know there's a lot of things that need to be addressed, and you do need police officers in there to address it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Miola, you have the floor.
I echo my colleague Venice Irving's statements very much. We need all the police protection we can handle. And if we can give more, we do the best we could to protect the kids in those schools and protect the faculty. You guys work very hard to teach the children, and you want to teach them in a safe atmosphere. So that's why I'm supporting also this contract tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
One more qualification for Deputy Chief Noonan.
You're not voting on this right now,
Right.
correct?
No. So that's why I just have one more question.
All right, question?
Thank you. Yep. So, Deputy Chief Noonan, I heard you state earlier that you had 5 people. You said, was it
This
a
is the
minimum
last
of 5
question, by the
people?
way.
So the MOU states minimum 5, maximum of 8.
Maximum of 8, okay, does it, what 5 are you relying on? Is that the ones that the council approved through attrition through the gun violence task force?
It's, so this is voluntary. It's been stated multiple times.
No,
It's
I
in
know,
the
but I just
evidence.
didn't know where he
So-
based those, so say when those 5
so that's-
positions are
that's-
gone through
it's-
attrition.
It's not, that
It's
doesn't.
still able to.
That doesn't, it's not a question.
I'm directing my question towards Deputy Chief Noonan, so I appreciate that.
Because you need to direct it to the chair.
I did,
So
and I
that-
asked you if I
alright.
could qualify my vote,
Okay.
so
All
thank
right.
you.
So,
You're not voting.
you're not voting as well. I would.
Why
like
I'm
to-
recusing my vote
Please-
is definitely
please
a
answer-
vote.
Please answer the question however you feel fit.
Thank you.
Please. Thanks.
So I'm not, so this is an overtime program. It's done by, so at the beginning of the month, we put our request for the overtime. And the requests are submitted, and it's all assigned by seniority, based on the request.
Oh, okay, so it is by seniority,
Right.
not through, okay, so it's not gonna be technically co-officers, it could be from top down, whoever applies for that actual position. Okay, that makes sense, so I just wanted to, that's it, I mean, that was a very important.
make the motion?
No, I'm aware, so hang on. That was the motion.
Thank you, that's, I mean,
Yeah.
that was very informative.
So,
That's basically what I wanted to know.
Councilman Miola and Councilperson Friend, now remember when I started this conversation with you, I said after we're done with the questions, I would specify the process of how we're voting here. What the judge is addressing is what I'm about to address. Councilman Miola moved this piece of legislation, and then Councilperson Friend seconded the actual move after the fact that you both recused yourself. The reason that had to happen is because you moved it, okay? Councilman Beatrice seconded this. So we needed somebody else to move and second this legislation. So we're good there, Judge.
The person who moves
What?
this has to be a voting member
Yes.
on the registration. And I don't recall that you fused this thing so much.
No, they did.
There is a motion here
That's-
to present this. That's the only motion. Who made that
Count, right.
Who made that motion?
I'm going to explain exactly what happened without all the conversation.
Who made the motion?
But you got to let me finish. All right. Councilperson Colosimo Testa originally introduced the piece, okay? Then, through the process of everything that just happened, they recused themselves, which I understand. Now, all right. But then, Councilman Miola made a motion to vote on this piece of legislation, and Councilperson Friend then and seconded this. So it's still on the floor for a vote, and this is processing. All right, perfect. All right, before this vote gets called, there's no more questions. I do want to just state something for the public, because this is streamed on YouTube and it's permanently on the internet. Everyone's talking about the merits for, why they're supporting. We have 2 people that have had to recuse themselves. We have 2 people who are clearly in support of this, publicly, on the microphone, want to see this moved, but they're frustrated with the process. So I just want to state this for the public, okay? In our rules of order right now that were adopted by the majority of this body, which I'm bound to lead, okay, accordance with those rules of order, it states that if something comes down from law, it's not subject to the Thursday rule. Okay, so this was given to us on the 4th, okay, which is today. And just so the public understands, the questions that have been had throughout this meeting were absolutely questions that were valid and well thought out and not in protest of this legislation. Okay, this is the result of how this council adopted to do our business. The only way pieces get on the floor to actually consider something and actually get into the hands of the council now, as of 2020, okay, is that a piece has to be introduced on the floor at a regularly scheduled meeting. Now, that's the only way something gets introduced. Yes, it could have been put in the packet Thursday, but the fact remains that it was put in the packet today. And the rules of order that were adopted by this council state that that's valid. So before we call this vote, whether votes are yes, no, people are recusing, I want the public to understand that if they want to look at this conversation, they should look at the whole conversation from the beginning so they could see how this processed, because the frustration in the room tonight is because we were handed this tonight, and the questions were processed because the questions were valid, and we have now done the best job we can do within the context of how our rules of order function today. All right, clerk, please call the vote.
Thank you.
No, vote
7.
Mine votes a no, I don't know how it went yes.
So,
Hey, the clerk did it for you.
all right, here's, just, did you vote yes or no?
Keep it yes, it's already through, keep it the way it is.
All right, are you sure?
Yes, keep it the way it is.
Okay. All right, I want all these votes to be reflected appropriately.
Whatever.
Commissioner, we have other pieces of legislation.
What's that?
We have 2 other pieces.
I know,
All right.
I know, that's why I'm not calling for an adjournment here.
Yes,
This
sir.
was the first piece we dealt with.
We're all
All
set.
right, so thank you. This passed. Dr. Davis,
Thank you.
Board Member Cooper, thank you for attending.
Thank you.
And we're gonna finish the rest of the meeting. You're welcome to stay. While we're moving.
But we understand. I have school tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, thank you.
Good night.
All right. And before we move on, I also wanted to note that Deputy Chief, do you want to come back up here now? Thank you.
I can't believe he stayed.
Yeah, I know. That's how he's here, so I want him at the table. So, Deputy Chief, thank you for your attendance. All right. Moving on. Ordinance 2, intersections where stops required. Councilmember Beatrice is the sponsor. We need a second.
I'd like to second this, please.
Do we
Mr.
need the
President.
Thursday rule for this one?
I mean, technically,
Yes.
you don't, according to your rules.
It's coming from the
That's-
clerk's office.
No, it's coming from the police.
It came from the police department.
Please.
It says submitted by the clerk's office, but
Oh, okay. It didn't come from the police.
hang on.
No, it did not come from the police. I'm sorry.
All right, so waive the rule.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to waive the Thursday rule.
Second.
All right, any opposed? Thank you. All right, be it ordained that section 216.358, Schedule C, intersections where stops required, be amended to include the following: Ashland Ave and Riverside Drive, northwest corner of Ashland Avenue, Buchanan Road and Riverside Drive. These are all northwest until I say otherwise. Buchanan and Riverside Drive, Coolidge Road and Riverside Drive, Dawes Road and Riverside Drive, Kingston Road and Riverside Drive, Melvin Road and Riverside, Spratt and Riverside, Utica and Riverside, Wells and Riverside, southeast corner of Wells Place. Be it further ordained, the proper signage is already in place. Your votes.
9 A's adopted.
Thank you. Councilman Beatrice is the sponsor on ordinance number 3, intersections where stops required. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Be it ordained that section 216.358, Schedule C, intersections where stops required, be amended to read as follows: strike Cosby Road and Riverside Drive, southwest corner, replace with Cosby Road and Riverside Drive, 4-way stop at each intersection. Be it further ordained, the proper signage is already in place. Your votes.
9 A's adopted.
Proposed ordinance 4 is sponsored by Councilmember Aiello. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Yoela's the second on this one. Be it ordained that section 216.360, Schedule E, no parking at all times, be amended to include the following: Broadway east side from Oriskany Street to Lafayette, Broadway west side from Oriskany Street to Lafayette Street. Be it further ordained, the proper signage be erected where necessary. Your votes?
What?
All right. For real?
What?
You voted no on this?
What? I just saw it tonight. No, I'm just kidding. Don't switch it.
All right, it's a yes.
I make a motion to-
All right, 9 days.
Second. Second to adjourn.
Adjourn?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. It was a fun one, to be honest with you. These two people.